Hi guys, welcome back. Again, we are going to be talking about The Test by Angelica Gibb. So if you have not listened to the read aloud of that text, then you need to go back and do your read aloud. Please go do that now. Okay. All right. Welcome back if you are back with us. Okay. So today, the strategy that we are going to use to help us understand this text better is we are going to think about how good readers will expect stories to have characters that respond in different ways to power. So for example, some characters will be looking for power, they will seek it, try to get more for themselves. Some characters will resist power. They will fight against rules. Like, for example, we were talking about in our last story how, in our last lesson, how maybe some characters were fighting against the rules of the society in the 1940s. Those characters are resisting power. Some will be exerting it. They try their best to have as much control as they can over others and over a situation. They are exerting their power. And finally, some will just submit to it. They will allow things to happen even if they don't believe it's right, or ignore that things are happening that are wrong, things like that. Now, in order to really think about this, the first thing we need to do is kind of rank the characters in our text. So I think that I wrote down the power rankings as I expect them to be in the story. I think it's pretty obvious that Marion is in the power position on the very bottom. Everyone has more power than her. She is a black woman in the 1940s. Everyone else is white. She doesn't even have her driver's license. They are the only ones who can help her get this done, and she has to behave exactly perfectly for it to happen for her. Okay. Whereas the inspector is obviously the person I think with the most power because he doesn't like something Marion does. He can just fail her and go on about his day like it didn't even happen. It doesn't really affect him. Um, I think that ranking these people in terms of power is pretty easy to do. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to identify a character. Let's see. We'll start with the inspector. And what I'm going to do is I am going to give my thoughts, and I'm just going to think about details from the text or thoughts of my own that sort of will show me whether or not they are seeking, resisting, exerting, or submitting to power. So first of all, the inspector, does he seek power? And, he already has power, but I think he works to keep it also. So I guess he seeks more power, or at least he definitely seeks to continue to have power over people like Marion. He's always putting Marion down, and he makes it seem like she can't be smart or competent. I mean, he laughs at her, right? Um, no one tries to have power over him, so he can't be resisting anyone's power. Like, no one is in charge of him at all in the story. I'm sure in his life, if the story was about this inspector and we learned about his life, maybe he has a boss who is really mean to him. I don't know. But in this story, in the context that we have, no one has power over him. Does he exert power? I think he definitely is exerting power over Marion. Like when she says, damn you to him, he is the one in power. And so he shows it by just randomly marking some errors on her test and telling her to drive back to start. And she didn't even do anything other than say damn you to him after he was terrible to her. Terrible. Okay. Does he submit her again? No one tries to control him, so there's no one for him to submit to. That is not something I can really explore for this character. So after I finished sort of considering how the inspector all of his responses to power, I kind of wanted to think about, why did the author show him behaving like this? And so I just summed up my own thoughts on it. And I put this post-it on my notebook, and it says, the inspector is a racist and wants to keep white people in a superior position. And I wonder, maybe, like, he doesn't have a name, right? He's just called the inspector. Mrs. Erickson has a name, Marion has a name, but he doesn't have a name. He's called the inspector. And I wonder if that's because the author maybe wanted to show how many white males in power might have treated Marion in the 1940s. Like, maybe she wanted to show that this is common. I think that is possible. I think it might be actually the case. All right, so next, I was thinking about Mrs. Erickson. And so I started off with, did she seek power? And my thoughts on that is, I think a little bit she does. She really wants Marion to have her license so that she can drive her children to school. She doesn't want Marion to have her license so Marion can get around for herself, so she can do things on her own, be independent. She wants Marion to drive her kids to school. So I think that's definitely showing that she has and wants to continue to keep a little bit of power over Marion. Okay. For resisting power, now she's the second most powerful person in this story, but we only have 3 people in the story. So she does consider briefly bribing the inspector to pass Marion. I think that's resisting them a little bit, because she feels like Marion should pass. The guy she thinks might not let Marion pass, so maybe she'll give him some money. That's resisting a little bit. However, she doesn't actually do anything to fight against the unfair grades that the inspectors are giving Marion on her test. Like, even though she thinks Marion is a fine driver, she doesn't say anything. She doesn't argue with anybody. And she is the only person who would be in a position possibly to say something to the inspector about what he's done. Marion can't say anything. She doesn't have any power in the situation at all. But Mrs. Erickson does. Something to think about there. Okay, I feel like she is not really trying to exert power on Marion. I mean, she does, because Marion is her employer, or excuse me, Marion is her employee. She wants Marion to be driving her children around, but she wishes she could pay Marion more money. She thinks Marion deserves more, and she seems to have a general affection for Marion. So I don't really think she's purposefully trying to exert control over her, honestly. But I do think she submits to the power of the inspector a little bit. Or I guess maybe what I mean is that she is submitting to the way things are, as far as in the 1940s, where white people are in power, and she just is going to believe that they're right over her friend, who, I mean, is her employee, but still is someone she cares about. So for submit to it, what I said is that she doesn't seem to believe Marion didn't earn her failure on the first test. Like, she thinks that her talkative relative made Marion nervous before the test, and that's why Marion made so many mistakes. But Marion's telling her, I don't remember making those mistakes. Marion very clearly knows that she was not passed because she is Black. But Mrs. Erickson seems to have no idea that this is a problem, doesn't think it's a thing that could happen, and believes the white men over the person she actually knows and trusts to take care of her children. All right, so my thoughts here on Mrs. Erickson after considering her response to power. Mrs. Erickson is showing kind of passive racism. Like she likes Marion, but even though she knows Marion is a good driver, she still assumes that the inspectors are doing a good job and that Marion is making real mistakes. So, all right. That's it, guys. That is what I'm going to be expecting for you to do today in your practice. And you should be trying to consider this sort of thing while you are reading your own books. If you made a notebook page like one of the pages that I've created today, that would probably be really excellent to see. Let me know if you have any questions. Thanks a lot, guys.